Yes, I think it's extremely concerning, and it's clearly, if this is happening, it's a clear example of the Chinese embassy and the Chinese Communist Party exercising its influence in Britain. And I think it amounts to a threat to our freedoms, because we're a free society, a democracy, where Hong Kongers here should have the freedom to hold events. Well, we will definitely raise this after the Manchester incident and also the recent incident in Southampton, where some Hong Kongers were physically assaulted by Chinese students. We raised those issues very actively with the government. We made a lot of noise about them. And if there are specific detailed examples of Hong Kongers having to cancel events because of Chinese pressure on venues, we would like to know the details of those incidents. If people can contact Hong Kong Watch and share that information, we will definitely raise it with the British government, raise it with MPs, and try to get that addressed. Yeah. That is definitely a concern that I have. I think in the last few years, the British government's position had become stronger on China, on human rights. The UK had started to speak out a bit more robustly than it used to on, for example, Hong Kong or on the Uyghurs. And now, as you've said, there are signs that they want to almost get back to business as usual with the Chinese government. And I think it's very concerning, and it's the job of and human rights groups like Hong Kong Watch, but also members of Parliament, to make sure that doesn't happen and to put pressure on the British government. That I wouldn't say that talking to the Chinese government is wrong. Of course, we need to talk to the Chinese government, and I'm not even necessarily opposed to visits, depending on the nature of the visit. But what I would be very concerned about is if in that process of engagement they abandoned human rights. I think the only value of having that engagement is to put human rights at the center of it, and to make it very clear to the Chinese regime what our values are, what our concerns are, our support for the international rules-based order. And so, we need to keep up the pressure on the British government to make sure that it doesn't sacrifice human rights in that process. I think it's a very difficult question to answer, because in our work in Hong Kong Watch, our work is totally cross-party. We work with members of Parliament in all parties, and you saw this evening Catherine West, who's the Shadow Minister for Asia for the Labour Party. She's one of Hong Kong Watch's patrons. She's a genuine friend to human rights and to the people of Hong Kong, the people of China, and we work extremely closely and very productively with her. And similarly, we heard from Tom Tugendhat, the Security Minister, who's in the Conservative government. He's also been a great friend of Hong Kong and a great friend to human rights. So there are good people in all parties who take human rights seriously and who speak out on human rights in China. And equally, there are other people in all parties that have a slightly different position. So I wouldn't want to predict. And I also know that very often what happens is when you're in opposition, it's easier to take a very strong, robust position. When you're in government, quite often parties in government find they end up taking a more complicated position. So I wouldn't want to say which party is going to be stronger. It's our role as a human rights NGO to keep up the pressure on all the parties, and whichever party is in government, to make sure that they do the right thing for human rights. And we have friends in all parties, and we will keep working with those friends in all parties.